right, so anyway, we are here this afternoon, and the name of the person being interviewed is?
Wallyne Volcy.
Okay. And what is your birthday?
10/17/1977.
And your current address?
5762 Okeechobee Boulevard.
Okay.
Number 137, West Palm Beach, Florida, 33417.
Okay. And the other people in the room are?
Al Goose.
Okay. And my name is Carlton Cartwright. I'm with the Children's Coalition Incorporated. And let's see. The first question that we have to ask you is, what branch of the service were you in?
U.S. Army.
Okay, and what wars did you serve in?
Well, I was deployed in Bosnia. That was my first deployment, and then Iraq was my second deployment.
Okay, and that's where you served, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And were you drafted or did you enlist?
Enlisted.
Okay. Where were you living at the time you enlisted?
Newburgh, New York.
Okay. And why did you do that? Why did you join?
Well, at the time, I was young. I was attracted to the idea of traveling with the Army, and also the fact that, you know, you could actually go to school at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that was very attractive.
So, okay, that's the reason you joined. And why did you pick the branch that you picked?
Well, I was first approached by the Army, by, you know, an Army recruiter. Then after that, I met up with the Marines as well, because, you know, they were all in the same building.
Right.
Once I went and sat down with the Army recruiter, I think a couple weeks later, I ended up talking with the Marines as well.
Okay.
But I think the reason I went with the Army was because they were more proactive towards me than the Marines were at the time.
Okay. All right. And what years did you serve?
97 to 2006.
Okay, 1997 to 2006?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you were in for 9 years?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. All right, and by the way, today's date is March 16th, 2011. Okay. Do you recall your first days in service?
My first days, of course.
Yeah. We never forget those things, do we?
No.
So go ahead.
It was early morning, of course.
How early?
4, I think. 4 in the morning. We get picked up by your recruiter, then you go down to the map station and you do your final paperwork, the swear in and everything, and then you get on the bus to go to your basic training area. So
Where was that?
Fort Jackson.
Okay. And
That's,
you started out in New
South
York, right?
Yes, New York.
All right. So where did you go when you left New York?
That's when I left. Well, Newburgh.
Or did they start indoctrinating you or giving you orientation in New York?
No. Well, I was living in Newburgh.
Mm-hmm.
So the map station is down in the city. So I had to go from Newburgh to the city. From there.
In New York City or in Manhattan?
Not. I think it's in Brooklyn.
Oh.
Where, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, that's where you meet all the other personnel that's going to be joining around the same time.
Right.
You will be.
Your peers.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
everybody meet up in the same area, and then you get separated depending on where your basic training is going to be at. And then from there, you get shipped out to where you're going for your basic.
Okay. So physically, after Brooklyn, where did you go next?
South Carolina.
Where?
Jacksonville. No, is it South Carolina? Fort Jackson. I don't remember the
Is that
city.
Fort Bragg?
No, Fort Jackson.
Fort
Fort Bragg is in North Carolina.
Okay, okay.
Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Okay, keep me straight. All right, so you went to Jacksonville?
Fort Jackson.
Fort Jackson,
Which is
okay.
in South Carolina.
Okay, and you started your basic training?
Yeah.
So tell us what was all of that like, and how did you feel?
Well, everybody got there, of course, in a bus, a yellow bus.
Did you fly down or took a bus down?
We took a bus.
From New York? Wow,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I know. Uncomfortable ride. But nonetheless, we got there. We were greeted by our drill sergeant, you know, screaming and yelling, get off the bus, and so on and so forth. And, you know, your little personal gear that you brought with you, you had to leave it behind because you're no longer a civilian.
Right.
And it was, the yelling and screaming didn't bother me at all.
Where did you have to leave your personal stuff behind? In New York?
No, once you get there. I mean, they do allow you to take your personal gear with you.
Okay.
But once you get to your basic, you get off the bus with your gear,
Mm-hmm.
you leave it right there.
Okay.
And then, you know, they have you file in single line. And then, you know, they'll start calling the names and separate you because you'll end up in different companies as well.
Mm-hmm.
So once they call your name and they separate everybody, you meet your drill sergeants that's going to be taking care of you during your training. And, you know, everybody's yelling and screaming. Some of the kids are crying because they're not really used to that. To me, it didn't really matter. The screaming didn't really do anything for me. I was just more like trying to figure out what was going on, more so, and then paying attention to the rest of the peers, especially the ones that were like really scared and afraid and crying and they wanted to go back home. So that was funny to me.
Okay.
The first day was a very long day because
How old were you?
wow, 18. Yeah, I waited until my.
So
18th
everybody else
birthday.
was like the same age, right?
Yes.
But you
pretty
weren't
much.
crying.
No. It was amusing, actually. It was somewhat amusing to me because I don't know. It's like, I mean, you've seen people scream and yell before, so it's like, okay.
I guess maybe it was all right when mommy and daddy did it, but now it's not. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember any of your instructors?
Drill Sergeant Shepard, I do remember his name, and Drill Sergeant Montgomery. There was a third one, I just didn't want to remember his name.
We all had one of those. So, what was your day like? You know, tell me about basic training.
Early mornings every day. It's 7 days a week. You're getting up at 4 every morning because you have to get up, fix your bed, get yourself ready for your physical training. You do your physical training, you come back, you take a shower, you get dressed, you get information, you go to the shower hall, you eat, and then, you know, you get back information, and it was just everyday training for, you know, I think, how long was it? Like 2 months? Yeah, every day.
8 weeks.
Yes.
Okay.
Training.
All right. So how did you get through it? You know, what was your training? With any?
I think the physical training was
Did you have?
hard.
What was your tech school? Did you have tech school or?
No, basic training, well, you start out with basic training. Basic training has nothing to do with tech school. Basic training has to do with learning about the military in general. First of all, you have to get fit because you have to be able to pass your physical fitness test. So if you're a young teenager, you're not a track star, so it's not like you've been running and doing push-ups and sit-ups and all these different exercises. So you had to learn the name of the exercises, how to execute the exercise, and to stay fit and get to that where you can actually pass your physical fitness. test, and then you learn the different things about the Army, like some of the policies and how to greet your officers and non-commissioned officers, and so more like it was a general learning process as to what to expect your everyday in the Army, but not your schooling as to what your job is going to be. Once you're done with your basic training, then you go to your school.
So what did you go to tech school for, and where did you go?
I went to Georgia, Fort Gordon, Georgia, for 35 Quebec, which is aviation navigation system repair.
In basic training, though, let's go back for a second. What was what were your instructors like?
Well, we had 3 instructors. I would have to say one was cocky. We had one that was very, very quiet, more like stand in the background and watch. And then we had another one who was like always yelling, always screaming. So it was like 3 different personalities together, and they each had their own separate style of teaching.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Which one is it whose name you can't remember? The one that's screaming?
Cocky.
Cocky. Oh,
Yes.
okay. All right. What about what kind of classes did you take in tech school? For what was it that you were studying?
Avionics.
Oh, okay. All right. And how were those instructors?
Well, it was set up like a school, so you went through class to class. So, you really didn't spend much time with your instructors. You spent time with your actual drill sergeant, that was in charge of your company, because once you get to school, they try, it's more like structure, like you would be, once you're done with schooling, you go to your regular duty station.
Right.
You have, your drill sergeant, who's in charge, and you have your first sergeant, then you have your commander. You go to school 9 to 5, but you go through different classes. You have different instructors. We were there for like 6 months. It was a 6 months training for that particular job. But you really didn't interact too much with your instructors, besides just sitting in the class, taking the notes, taking the tasks, and doing whatever it is that you have to do.
How long were you in technical school?
About 6 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, about 6 months.
24 weeks. Okay. And where was that, in Georgia?
Yes, Fort Gordon, Georgia.
Okay. All right. And I guess you got through that okay, huh?
Yes.
Obviously, yeah. All right. So we're back to you served in, is that the Persian Gulf, or which war was that you served in?
Bosnia, I'm not really sure. I don't.
Let's take them one at a time.
Okay, I don't really remember what name they have for Bosnia.
Don't worry about that, but it was in Bosnia.
Yes.
So was it Desert Storm and?
I think Desert Storm was Kuwait.
Kuwait,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Where exactly did you go in Bosnia? You know?
Oh my goodness, I don't remember the name. It's one of those words that's really hard to say.
Okay. Okay. Oh, do you remember arriving there?
Yes.
What was that like?
Cold.
Cold. Like
Yes.
what? 50, 30, 10?
At first it was cold and wet. There was a lot of rain.
What time of year was it?
We got there, I believe it was in January.
Right in the middle of the winter.
Yes, cold and wet.
So what was the temperature like? 20 degrees?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, so what was it like?
That was my first deployment, actually.
What was your job assignment?
Well, when you deploy, your job assignment, as is when you get in there, is just your job, your regular job, which is what you do in the States. Now, once you arrive there, not only do you have your job, which you went to school for, anything that comes up that needs to be done, that's your job, really. You don't have a fixed job in
Gotcha.
a deployment. You do whatever is there to be done.
Okay, so what did you do?
First of all, I did my personal job because at the time in my unit, I was the only one with my MOS. Besides that, you had guard duty that you had to perform, because I think the custom is different than our custom is. The males couldn't touch the females at the gate, so you had to have females at the gate to do the search and all.
Oh, okay, on females.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you had, because it's different. Because even though we were over there, we still had to try to go by the rules and customs and respect certain things that they have.
According to the country that you were in? Is that
Yes.
what we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, so was that your job? You were doing security?
That's not your job. This is a job.
A job.
Yeah,
So
that's
what did you
one
do?
of the different jobs that you have to do. Besides,
On the list.
you know, really my job, my first job was to make sure that the parts that needs to be fixed for the aircrafts are fixed on time, because the aircraft has to be ready to go at all time. And then, you know, guard duty, that is a second job that you have. Pretty much, I think everybody went through that. And then whatever other things that there's out there to do.
Like what?
Oh my goodness.
Come on, what'd you do?
Any extra duties, like escorting somebody on base, like somebody that comes on base and, you know, they can just let them go anywhere and everywhere they want to go.
Right.
You know, you have to escort them around. That's one of the different things that had to be done. They had, you know, like the laundry system was different. You don't get a washing machine like you get at home.
So would you?
They had it set up where it was more like the natives there that would come on base, and you had to work with them, collecting the laundry and making sure that things don't get mixed up with other people's stuff, and it was a big mess. And then the fact that they speak very little English, and then you had to deal with the fact that, you know, they don't believe in certain things like deodorant and stuff, and you working with them, you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna die in here. And, you know, and you working, when it was cold, it was okay because it's cold, but once the heat came around, it was like, oh gosh, I'm gonna die in this place.
So they had hygiene issues.
Not according to their cultures.
Gotcha.
Yeah, not according to the cultures. According to the cultures, when we're there, the women, they used to say that when a man have a high smell, that means that he's a strong worker. He's a good man. He's, you know, it's different. And you sitting there listening to this like, oh, really?
Okay.
So it's different. And then, you know, some of the women will bring their kids with them. And I remember there was an incident where one of the kids, they went and bought like toothpaste and toothbrush for one of the kids because, you know, he had some tooth decay.
Yeah.
And the mom was upset because that is not something that, you know, that's important to her in her household, you know, and it was like, okay.
Right.
All right. We'll just leave all that alone and let it be. The other duty that you had was like driving, because we were at a very small base where I was at, camp. There was Camp Comanche and there was Camp Eagle. We weren't too far from each other. The base I was at was the smallest. So we used to have to travel back and forth for supplies or anything that we needed to go to the other camp and get it. So you had driving duties where, you know, you had to drive back and forth, taking people to and from at all times, you know, until the curfew. There was always a curfew. You couldn't just drive at night. There was a curfew as well. What else?
How long were you there?
I was there for about 8 months.
Okay.
I think 8 or 9 months.
Right. Right. What else did you want to talk about?
As far as there being over
Did you see any combat?
combat? Oh wow. The only thing I experienced there was, I remember we were everybody was just doing what they were supposed to be doing, and then you heard the siren go off, and you hear the what's the good word to use? Like when you watch TV, and then they showing like a bomb is being dropped, and you hear that whistle sound.
Right.
It was that sound that you heard, and there was like a big fight, like air fight, really, up ahead. And because they had bunkers, but you have, from where you're at, you have to get to the bunker. So, and it's really hard to be running to the bunker and not look up, because you hearing the sound and you're like, what's going on? And you're looking up ahead, you're like, oh my God, anything can happen.
Okay.
And it was an experience, because everybody was so scared. Everybody, because civilians, non-civilians, I mean, everybody was afraid, because it's not like it's something you can, it's hand on hand combat. It's something up ahead, and you're like, there's nothing you can do but hope and pray that whatever it is, it goes over real quickly and everything is fine.
So were bombs going off around you?
Yeah. Whatever they had going on up ahead, once you get in the bunker, you can't really tell what's going on.
Right.
You just can hear what's going on outside, but you can't see anything once you're in the bunkers.
Right. So what was the proximity? How close did this occur near your physical being? Was it a mile? Was it a half a mile? Was it right upstairs? Was it what?
A mile? What you mean, like, as far as...
The distance where these bombs were being dropped.
Quite frankly, I don't really know. It's not like something they really discussed with us. Once the whole thing was cleared, we got all clear, and they had to do the head counts, make sure everybody is counted for.
Did you see any of the destruction?
You'll see destruction, because from traveling, you'll see, whatever.
But where you were immediately, you didn't see any destruction.
No, you just know that it happened up ahead you.
Up ahead?
Yes.
What does that mean, up ahead?
In the skies. You could see.
Well, but yeah. You
could see the aircrafts. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like,
you could see them dropping?
You could see them, like, you see, when you're watching, like, a Air Force movie or whatever, and you see two aircrafts going at each other,
right.
You could see that
really?
Up ahead. But that's only for a split second as you're running, because you don't want to be staying there like admiring what's going on, because you don't know.
You're trying to get out of harm's way.
Exactly, and that's the procedures anyway. Once that happens, the sirens goes off, and you hear and you feel it's run to the bunkers. It's not, get out and try to figure out who's up there and what's going on up there, or it's just get to the bunkers, period.
Okay.
And everybody was scared. I mean, in the bunkers and I remember this one lady, she was like, I'm not a religious person, but can somebody start praying, please? It's not funny. It wasn't funny then. It was not funny then, I will tell you that.
Yeah.
But now that, it's been so many years, I can talk about it and laugh about it, but it was not funny.
I'm sure. Okay. So was that a constant thing in your life over the 8-month period?
I wouldn't say it was a constant thing. No, it wasn't a constant thing. That particular incident was like the closest we were to, like...
How many times would you say that happened the whole time you were there? that time?
Maybe like 3 times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Over the 8-month period.
Yeah.
Okay, otherwise it was just business as usual.
Mhm.
All right. Did you see any casualties? Were there any casualties in your unit?
No, we were fortunate.
Okay.
No.
Okay. And obviously you were not a prisoner of war.
No.
Oh, okay, good. Were you awarded any medals or citations?
Well, yes, the unit did. I mean, everybody in the unit for.
Well, let's back up for a second. You said you were deployed twice, correct?
3 times.
3 times.
Yes.
All right. The first time was Bosnia.
Yes.
The second time was.
Iraq.
Okay. Tell us about that. What was that like when you got there, and what was that situation?
Well, it was a totally different situation. I have to say that it was first.
You know what city you were in, or town, or?
Oh gosh.
No, don't worry about that.
As
You were in Iraq. Don't worry about it. Just.
We you know, it was in the news. Everybody, you know, did their preparation. You prepared as much as you could, did as much training to make sure that, you know, everything goes accordingly. That's what all you can do before you get there. You get there, we went to Kuwait first. Once we're in Kuwait, because, you know, we went there before the war started, so we were in Kuwait just on standby, doing more training and more preparation, more this, more that, until the go was given, and then you had to move forward to go from Kuwait and crossing over to Iraq.
Okay.
Of course, you're in the middle of the desert, and we were the first there, so we had to set up everything, from latrine to living areas to our workstations and the vehicles and everything. Is like starting from scratch, basically. You really didn't have work hours. You just work as long as it needed to be. 7 days a week. There was no time off, no day off, nothing off, period. Of course, you had to be in uniform, your full gear, full combat gear at all times, because there was a threat of embassy attack. So not only did you have your full gear, you had to carry your embassy gear with you as well everywhere you went. Hot. Extremely hot. It gets cold as well, don't get me wrong, but during the day it was extremely hot. But it felt like it was cold because you went from 120 degrees and it would drop down to 80 degrees and it felt like you were in an ice box, but you really wasn't in an ice box. It's just a difference in the temperature. So you had...
It would drop, huh?
Yeah. So it felt like you were going from heat to cold, you know, every day, you know, dealing with that. The sandstorms, oh my goodness. It was sand everywhere, in everything. The food, the water, everywhere. There was not a part of your body that didn't get a little bit of sand in it. Okay. You breathe the sand, you eat the sand. I mean, it was in your food, in your water, everywhere. It was horrible. And then, okay, we got the go. Convoy, of course, you know, you had to drive all your gear, all your necessities with you to go to Iraq because you have to set up there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Long drive, I have to say. Long drive. I think it had to be at least a 24-hour drive. And there was no stop. You just drove till you get where you were going. I have to say that it was a long deployment. I think the whole idea of the fight that was going on made it even longer. Dealing with the IUD and explosives, it felt like it was a lifetime. The time spent.
IUD, what do you mean? And explosives?
Yeah, IUD are like they set it up on the road where, you know, as you drive, if your vehicle drive over it, it'll explode. That's what
Right.
it did.
Okay. I'm trying to remember the other name for bombs. Go ahead.
So.
Ordnance.
Yeah.
Right.
But we didn't really use that.
Use other words.
Yeah. Well, that's what the native, that's what they called it, you know. They didn't call it ordnance. This is, you know, it's a military word.
Right.
So, or car bomb, you know. But it wasn't a pretty good experience. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, but does it bother you to talk about it?
Not really.
Can you tell us more?
Oh, okay. I would say the one experience I had that I was really totally against was, I remember we were doing a convoy going from Kuwait to Iraq because we had to bring supplies. There was always a convoy between Kuwait and Iraq because the people in Iraq always needed supplies.
Right.
So there was always
Traveling
traveling going on. I remember we were traveling, going to Iraq from Kuwait, and it was pitch dark. You couldn't even see a person right next to you. It was so dark.
Really?
And we were receiving fire. And but you can't see from where. You know you're being fired upon, but
Right.
you can't really pinpoint from where.
Right.
But our training said that if you're driving in a convoy and you're receiving fire and you don't know where the enemy is, you're supposed to keep driving, not unless there's been an explosion, which means you have casualty at the time where you can't leave your
Right.
your personnel behind. So we were receiving fire, and the commander decided that he wanted to stop the convoy. So since he's in charge, we stopped, and everybody got out their trucks, their vehicles, and got on the ground, and it was like, okay, what are we doing? This is not, what the procedure says we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be trying to get away from it, not sit in it. And then we can't even see, what we're doing. And that was like, to me, was incredible. That was like one of piss poor decision I've ever heard or seen done by a commander at that time. Because to me, it put everybody's life at risk for no good reasons at all.
So when he made that command, nobody was wounded or anything?
Fortunately, no.
Okay, but he said to stop and...
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, so, what else, what other stories? Do you have anything else that's very memorable? Were there any casualties in your company at this juncture?
Yes, we did have casualty. We had one of the casualties that we had was one of the things that you can't really forget. We actually had a suicide. I think that hurt more than anything else. It's like being over there, it's like you expect to have some type of casualty being from the enemy, but being that somebody that you see every day, you talk to, and then one day you just hear about a gunshot, and then you hear that, okay, they did that themselves. And it's like you start asking yourself questions like, okay, how did I miss that? Or, man, I just talked to him like an hour ago.
Right.
So that was the worst. That was definitely the worst and most memorable, I would have to say.
Okay, but beyond the suicide, were there other casualties in your unit?
Yes, we did. But not casualty where they actually, died.
But wounded?
Yes.
Okay. Was there a lot of that?
Not a lot.
Not a lot.
No.
Okay.
No, we were actually fortunate. I have to say we were fortunate to that aspect. The unfortunate part was that we lost someone that had nothing to do with, the enemy that was there.
Okay. Explain that. You lost someone that didn't have anything to do with the enemy?
Yeah, the suicide.
Oh,
that
I understand.
was the worst.
No, I got you.
Yeah.
Oh, what, you remember the years or the dates that you deployed to, Bosnia?
It was 1999.
To?
1999.
Just that year?
Yeah.
Okay, and for, Iraq, Kuwait, the next one, what was the time frame?
Iraq, the first time around was 03.
Okay,
The second time around was 05.
okay. Alright, and in 03, how long was your deployment?
03, it was 8 months.
Another 8 months.
Yes.
Okay, alright. So, what did you do in between? So let's go back. After Bosnia, that was 99.
Yes.
So you didn't go to Iraq and Kuwait until 03. So what did you do from 99 to 03?
Well, we came back from Bosnia to our duty station. And once you get there, you just try to fall back into somewhat of regular life.
And where was that at? Back in
Fort Hood, Texas.
in Texas. Now we're in Texas.
Yes.
Okay, so you've been to quite a few places.
Yes.
All right. So what city is Fort Hood near?
Killeen, Texas.
Killeen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, all right. The third deployment was to where?
Iraq again.
Again, same place?
No, it wasn't the same place. It was a different area, but it's still Iraq.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did that deployment go?
That deployment was a little easier than the first one because by that time most of everything was already set up. You didn't have to go in and set everything up because the first wave go and set everything up, and you go through the worst part of the deployment because you have to do everything yourself.
Right.
The porta potties, you had to mandate that yourself. I think one of the worst thing we had to do while we were there the first time around was having to actually burn your own
Your clothes?
no, not your clothes.
All right, we can skip it.
Burn your own waste.
Yes. there you go.
That was one of the things that you had to do because there was no other way to dispose of it. Was
Okay.
just pour gasoline and stir and burn.
Stir and burn.
Yeah.
Okay. All
That was
right.
one of the worst jobs anybody who you asked would say they had to do was that.
Right.
Yeah.
Were there any casualties during that deployment?
The first, yes.
Well, this is 05 now.
No, this is 03. When you first go and set up, what I was saying
In
is,
03, yeah, okay.
and when you first go and set up, that's the hardest part because there is nothing there provided for you.
Right.
You have to do everything yourself. Not only do you have to do your job, you have to do this, you have to do that. You have to find ways to water shortage and this shortage and that shortage, and everybody had to make do some way somehow.
Right.
So that's the worst part is the beginning. And then a year later, I went back. Once I came back to the state, a year later, I went back. The second time around was a little easier because then, you actually had porta johns,
Okay.
and you had somewhere to shower.
Right.
Even though, it was you have to be conscious of water because you would still run out of it. But you had that set up, and it went from being in a tent with like 70, 80 people to being in a room maybe with 2 or 3 people.
Oh, okay. This is the second time.
Yes, the
It's
second
completely
time.
different.
Oh yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Well, it's 2 years later too, right? So
Yeah, it's
a little more privacy and
a little more everything.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, but now in your third deployment, what was the casualty rate?
Third deployment, our casualty rate was we didn't have any casualties like in our company. We had some in our battalion.
Okay.
So it really doesn't matter where it's coming from as long as there's a unit that has the casualties. Like everybody feel it.
Right.
And I think we had the second time around we had a miss suicide again.
Okay.
But that one was a miss.
Gotcha.
So that was better than the first time.
Right.
It was caught on beforehand. So
Okay.
that was pretty good.
All right. And in not one of these deployments, you were never a prisoner of war.
No.
Good. Okay. And okay, I asked you this, but I don't know if we really got to it. Did you bring any medals or citations home?
Every time you deploy, you get medals.
Okay.
Yes, you
Okay.
do. Every time you deploy.
All right. Okay. Well, we're going to move into section 4. How did you stay in touch with your family during these 3 deployments?
Well,
You want to do A, B, and C? Yeah.
yeah, Bosnia. They had, I think it was AT&T set up over there.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you could call.
so you could call. Yeah, they had like an area dedicated where you could just go and try. There was always a line, of course, because everybody was trying to call home. So you would go and sit in line and wait your turn whenever you could, because it wasn't really like available all the time, because there were time where there was no communication in and out, so that wasn't too bad. Now in Iraq, the first time around, that was the worst one, because I think I might have went like maybe 3 months before I was able to actually, reach someone, because not only the calls was like, the way it had to be done was through a base. You had to get through a base back in the States. Then they would have to get to the person you're trying to call. And that was not always easy to do. It wasn't always easy to do. The connection wasn't always there. And the time. It was a time frame. Say it was like a 2-hour during the 24-hour day. And everybody trying to get in that 2 hours. And then you get like maybe 20 minutes to try to get through. Mm-hmm. And once your 20 minutes is up, it's up, whether you got through or not. And most of the time, it'll take you about 10 to 15 minutes to even get through. So if you did get somebody on the other line, all you could say was, "Hi, I'm okay, bye." Right. And that's it.
Yeah.
We went from that to where there was no communication at all.
Okay.
And then we went back to, okay, it's open, the window's open again. You can try to reach your family.
Okay. In between the deployments, the first time you went to Texas, all right, so after Bosnia, you went to Texas, then you went to your first deployment in Iraq.
No, I went from Fort Gordon, which is my AIT, my schooling, to Texas. That was my first duty station. as I was there, I went to Bosnia with the unit. We came back. Once we came back, I think the end of 2000, I went to Korea.
Oh.
And after Korea, I came back to the state. I went to
How long were you in Korea?
1 year.
And what'd you do there? What year was that?
From November 2000 to December 2001.
Okay. From when to when?
November 2000.
Oh, to 2001.
Yes.
What month?
December.
Okay. And what did you do while you were there?
Pretty much my job.
The avionics.
Yes.
Preparing planes?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Okay. In Bosnia, what did you do for recreation?
Wow, recreation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh goodness, what they had there for recreation? Oh, while I was there, they opened a coffee shop.
Okay.
That was a big thing. That was like a huge thing because you could get coffee, you could get cappuccino. That was the luxury of all luxury.
Yeah. Right.
And then they had the movie tent.
Huh.
Yeah. Well, they play movie like from whatever hours they playing movies. You could go and watch a movie.
Right.
So pretty much that was your luxury right there.
Right. Okay. In Texas, what did you do for entertainment?
Well, what every teenager do at that time.
Did you go off base a lot?
Oh well, yes, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, after you're done with your job, like you go to work. You know, you do your physical training early in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go to work at 9. You get off at 5. Hopefully, anyway. If you do get up at 5, you go to your barracks. You take your shower. You eat something. And, you know, you can go to the mall, go shopping if you want to, go to the movies, go out. So, when you back home in the States, pretty much once your duty time is over, the rest of the few hours that's left is yours. You can do most of what you want. You still had to go by the rules and regulations.
Right. In Korea, what'd you do for where were you at? You know where you were at? What base?
I was at, oh gosh. I don't remember the name. But it was the smallest base there is in Korea, period.
You know what city you were near?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Seoul? Are you near Seoul?
Oh, no, it was about, let me see, bus ride was about maybe 2 hours from Seoul.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Did you get up there much?
On the weekends, you
Okay.
could go, depending on what's going on.
Right. And what did you do?
In Seoul, oh man, Seoul is like the biggest base there is in Korea, and they have everything there. They have a hotel, they have all kind of food. They have, I think they have pizza place. They have Burger King. The base I'm at is so small. There's nothing there besides aircrafts and the motor pool, and that's it. That's
Okay.
all we had was the barracks where we sleep, our workstation, and the aircrafts. That's all there was there.
Right.
So for us was like a vacation, because there was everything. Popeyes, I think they had Popeyes and Burger King and all that other stuff there.
Okay.
You know, shopping areas.
It's like home away from home.
Yeah.
And what was the food like overall in the military?
Depending on where you at.
So it was different from
Yes.
station to station.
Yes, it is.
So where was the worst food? How was the food in Bosnia on the base?
Surprisingly, in Bosnia, it was wonderful.
I bet.
I was surprised. I'm serious. When I got there, I got to the mess hall, I had to ask, where am I at? Because the way they had it set up, and they would have like the salad buffet, and I mean it's a salad buffet. You get everything, from lettuce, carrots, cucumbers, everything. And then you go to another area and they have like your cold cuts, like tuna and boiled eggs and all kind of stuff for you to make what you want.
Right.
And then you had the hot table, and you had the dessert table, and I was like, oh my goodness, who's cooking this stuff? I know it's not the military, and it wasn't. It was civilians that was working there.
Okay.
And the food was wonderful. It was great.
All right. So how was it in Georgia, Fort Gordon?
It was like any military base you go to.
Gotcha.
You get the routine. It's a routine. The military have a routine with the food. Every day of the week, you get something, and then Monday it starts over again.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. All right. So how was the food when you were stationed in Kuwait and Iraq?
Oh my goodness, Kuwait, Iraq. Kuwait was somewhat like Bosnia when you get to Kuwait, because Kuwait is different than Iraq. Okay, the mess hall was set up like it was set up in Bosnia. Once you went across the borders, there was no mess hall. You got MREs, and the time they were able to offer anything hot was maybe you'll get like sausage, scrambled eggs, and pretty much that was your hot meal, and then the rest of the day you were stuck with good old MREs.
Okay.
Until the second time around, it was a little different.
Okay, it was a little better?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Overall, did you have... Okay, I want to know, how many different places did you travel while you were in the military? Any place that you did not mention already? You said Bosnia, Kuwait, Iraq, Korea. You've been to Texas. You've been to Georgia. You've been to South Carolina. You started out in New York.
While I was in Bosnia, I was able to go to Makarska.
Okay.
We actually, bus full of people, well, military actually, and we went to Makarska, which it was maybe like a 6 or 8 hour drive from where we were at.
Right.
And that was kind of like a vacation.
Okay.
4-day vacation.
Right.
From all the stuff that was going on base.
Right.
It was more like a really vacation place.
Okay.
I didn't know what to expect, but when we got there, we were surprised. Whoever was in charge of that did a very good job.
Right.
Because when we got there, it was like a Ocean Beach hotel. Everybody had roommates though, and the food was excellent there. But it was kind of like being on a vacation, because you'll go out to eat. The hotel will provide your breakfast. They did have a restaurant and hotel. You could eat there if you wanted to, or you could go into town and try, the native food there.
Right.
But the food was excellent. The people there were great, because it was a lot of different people. You had a lot of different nationalities. It was more like a vacation spot.
Okay.
Where they took us. The people were great. The food was great. It was a very good getaway.
Okay.
From what we were dealing with.
Right. Any other places you went while you were in the Middle East besides?
Let me see. There's places that when we were traveling to Iraq or back, we had to make a lot of stops. That's for sure. Horrible.
But that was still
Traveling.
between Kuwait and Iraq. Go ahead, tell me.
Yeah, traveling
What was
is
so bad about it?
horrible.
Mhm.
Because it would take you between 5 to 7 days to get from Iraq to, say, Germany, and then from Germany to the state.
Okay.
It's like the traveling is horrible.
Okay.
I mean, I understand why, because from base to base, when you're traveling in Iraq, you have to do you're traveling in aircrafts, helicopters, and if there is enemy fires, you're not flying anywhere.
Right.
You're
Right.
staying grounded until they know that it's safe somewhat to go from point A to point B, and then again you'll end up another base where the Air Force are at, and even them, they have to make sure it's all clear for them to fly, because aircrafts were being shot down and all kind of stuff. So it wasn't, nothing was really predictable.
Okay.
You just had to go with whatever it was for that day.
Did you get to spend any time in Western Europe? You mentioned Germany before.
Yeah, that's about the only place, really.
Okay. Okay. So, overall, did you have enough supplies
One.
throughout your 9 years?
Overall, enough supplies.
Okay, on the regular basis, okay, like stuff in the States, right?
Okay, in the States,
Yeah.
I would say yes, depending on what we're doing. Because you have to think about regular in the States is really not regular. We say, no, it's hard to explain, because what's regular for us being in the military is not going to be regular for everybody else that's looking in.
For civilians.
Yes.
I understand that.
And it's never regular, because every day is different, even though you might go through some of the same routines, but it's never the same day.
Well, okay, but overall, for the military, did you have everything that you needed?
No.
No. Okay. Was that, all right. That didn't matter whether you were deployed or not?
It didn't matter. No.
Okay. Okay. All right. Did you feel pressure or stress?
Definitely
Throughout?
stress.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
And I asked you about medals. Did you win any Purple Hearts?
No.
Now, did you have any injuries?
It all depends on what your definition of injury is. The Army they have different definition when it comes down to injury. In injury, you might have starting with your worst injury being that you're missing a limb or something like that.
That's true.
Yeah, and then you have other type of injuries that may occur while you're in the military. So it all depends on where you're at.
Well, let's
with
just
that
talk about
word.
Wallyne while you were in the service.
Yes,
While
I
you
did.
were on duty.
Yes.
Did
I
you ever get hurt?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Bosnia, that was one place. I was on guard duty, and the gate, the way it was set up, it would swing either way, all the way open, all the way closed. Someone had to actually physically walk the gate to close it, because if you let it go, it'll just swing. We had let a vehicle go out, and the person that was on guard with me was holding the gate, and he was supposed to walk the gate in. I'm walking in, which means the gate is behind me, and he swung the gate. He didn't say anything. So as I'm walking, the gate came and sat right on top of my foot, and I ended up with an ankle injury, a really, really bad ankle injury because of that. And that's one of the worst injury I had. And then I came back to the state, that's in Fort Hood, and we went running. Our commander was, he called it trying to get people fit for combat. It was when the time changed, and it was maybe 5:30 in the morning. It was still dark out. He figured to get us ready for deployment, we should go out and run in the woods in the dark.
Oh, good.
Oh yeah. So when we were running through the woods, I ended up stepping into a hole. When I stepped into that hole, it like messed up my knee.
Okay.
I was on crutches, all kind of stuff for that too, and back injury as well. I mean, I can go on. When I was in Iraq, they couldn't really tell me what happened to me because I ended up starting to get hives all over me. When I came back to the state, they sent me to see a specialist, and all he could tell me was, well, I don't know, we don't know why it happened or how it happened. It might be something you just have to deal with for the rest of your life. It might go away, we don't know, but there are certain medications you can go through. And he gave me like a list of medications. He started me on something, and then he was like, once your system get used to that, they can switch you to something else. And man, from that I ended up having some type of virus or bacteria in my intestines over there. I was on antibiotics for like 30 days. Came back to the state. I was still having issues with digesting and eating and all kind of stuff. And nobody really ever told me what happened. It was just...
What happened?
That's the thing. I don't know.
So when you just woke up and you were sick?
It was more like slowly.
Gradually.
Yeah, gradually. It's more like I got up one day and I just didn't feel too well in my stomach. I figured it had to be the food, or something, because the dirt, the sand, all that stuff is everywhere. You digesting it, you eating it, you drinking it. And then it went from that to where I was having problem eating, because I couldn't digest my food. And then once that happened, I went to see the doctor. I said, hey, doc, I don't know what's going on, but I'm not digesting well at all. And he did a stool sample. And then when I went back, because they had to mail it somewhere else to get tested or whatever,
Right.
and then wait for it. So during that time, I'm still going through that, and he can't really give me anything because he don't know what it is. So by the time, he got the results back, I went to see him. He was like, well, it looks like you have some kind of virus. I was like, okay. And he said, well, we're going to put you on antibiotics. I was taking like 12 pills a day for 2 weeks. At first, it was 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, they thought it was gone, but it wasn't. And I started getting sick again. I went back, I was like, doc, it's happening still. And they added another medication to it, and I went on that for another 2 weeks, and it kind of like alleviated the issue, but it never really fixed it. And it's kind of like one of those things. They told me, well, we're not really sure,
What did you say about your back?
My back, really, with the Army, I'll have to say this. These doctors, they're horrible. Extremely horrible. My first injury with my ankle, I was on crutches for about 5 months, I think. And nobody ever talked to me about going to physical therapy for it. I asked about it. They told me I didn't need it. Now, they didn't try to send me to physical therapy until like 4 years later. And I'm like, what is physical therapy going to do for me now? 4 years after my injury, it doesn't compute. when I got to the physical therapist, he was like, "When did this injury happen?" I told him. He was like, "Why they send you here?" I said, "I don't know." He was like, "Physical therapy is for when the injury occur, not 4 years later." He was like, "There's nothing I can do for you." Yeah, and he sent me back to the doctor. He wrote a note and said, "Here, take this to him because he's wasting my time." So when I went back, he was like, "Okay." They sent me to see orthopedics off base to actually fit my foot with orthopedics or whatever. So it's a special sole for me to wear in my shoes because I was having issues with standing, walking too long. I couldn't run anymore. It became a bigger issue because I would try to hold myself more on my left leg than my right, but then again, I already have a knee injury, so it just didn't work out at all.
Okay.
Which actually put more pressure on my back because I'm fighting with the ankle and a knee injury at the same time, and then it's like nobody want to do anything about it. You go to see the doctor. "Oh well, I'll tell you what. This week, I'm gonna put light duty on your on paperwork for you. It's not really fixing anything at all." I had one doctor say to me, "Well, if I do what I should be doing, you won't be able to deploy, and the Army needs everybody to deploy right now. So because of that, he just wouldn't diagnose me with anything, so I could go." I mean, really, it's horrible. It's really, really horrible. It's like, and then I end up having issue with my eye, my right eye, and every time I would go talk to them, since I can read, from a distance, it's like, "You're fine." It's like nobody really trying to figure out what the issue is. Because if they do find out what the issue is, that might mean that I can't do this or I can't do that. They can't send me overseas or whatever the case may be. And, "Oh, you can see, you fine." I'm like, "No, I'm not. There is something wrong with my eye. I'm telling you, I feel it. It bothers me. It gets swollen sometimes." And it's like, I always end up having to go to the urinalysis, like, for drug testing because it was always red. People used to think that I smoke, and I'm not even a smoker. I don't smoke cigarette, whatever it is.
Your eyes are red,
Yeah, I don't do smoking at all. But I was always on the list because of that fact. But that wasn't what it was. There was something wrong with me, but nobody was trying to figure out what it was.
Okay. Did you sustain any head injuries or anything? You said your back and you...
Migraines. I don't know if it's the stress or whatever, migraines. I start having my really, really bad migraines. I think what happened is the collective of things. My eyes started to give me problems. The stress and all of that together. Since nobody can diagnose me or give me a diagnosis of whatever it is and try to fix it, I started having really, really bad migraines, which I still do till today.
Okay. All right. What did you do when you were on leave?
Visited family, basically.
In New York?
New York, that's one place. I have a sister, younger sister in North Carolina. I would visit her. Let me see. I would go overseas. Oh, cruise. Pretty much that's it.
Okay. Okay, we did all your travel. Okay. So do you recall the days of the service ended when you were getting out?
Yes, it was if I'm not mistaken, about 90 days, 3 to 4 months after I came back from my second deployment.
Okay. All right. Where were you when you separated?
Georgia.
Okay. All right. And what did you do in the days and weeks afterwards?
Afterwards.
Did you work or go back to school? Or did you just take a break? Or
No, the weeks after work, I was still in the Army because I had accumulated so many leave days. I had over 90 days.
okay.
So I separated from the Army. I still had my days left as far as leave is concerned.
Yeah.
Then from there, I'm totally separated from
Okay.
the Army. During my leave time, I went visited family. And then I came back to Georgia because I had been in Georgia for I was stationed in Georgia for 5 years, but I didn't spend 5 years in Georgia because of the deployments. I came back to Georgia after that, and after I came back to Georgia, I did sign up for school.
Use the GI Bill?
Yes. Actually, I signed up for the school. I paid for the school. I ended up not even using it, using the GI Bill because it was difficult trying to get in touch with anybody, like trying to get that started. So I just decided to go ahead and pay for it, and then I'll figure it out later because the person they had there at the school that was supposed to be doing the veteran thing was like it was never in, and this, that, and the third. It was just too much nonsense for me.
Okay.
And after that, I did start working.
Okay. Did you make any close friendships while you were in the service? And did you continue them afterwards?
I didn't make close friendship while I was in the military. You really do, as you deploy, you do tend to get those close friendship because you're in a situation where you have to depend on that person day in, day out. Really, really depend on that person, not just for your work, also as a friend, a mentor, ear to talk, to listen to you and give you advice and keep your spirit up and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. So, yes, you do. These people end up being like brothers and sisters to you.
Okay. Did you continue any of those relationships, and for how long?
I did try to, but what happened is the people that actually still stayed in the military while I actually left, it became a little hard to keep in touch with because they were either deploying again. By the time I got out, I know my unit was getting ready to deploy again. Uh-huh. And them being over there and me being in the States, it's hard to keep in touch with somebody as to deploy besides just writing them or sending emails.
Right.
Pretty much that's as far as the extent of keeping in touch is. And once they come back, they get sent other places in the States. Once again, you don't really get to see anybody because everybody's going the opposite way. Right. The best you can do is just email. Just send them emails, see how they're doing, how their family's doing, and what they're doing, and things like that. But you don't really get to see them at all.
Okay. Do you belong to any veterans organizations now, or have you?
No, I don't. The whole thing about being in a veteran organization is they make it so complicated. I'm serious. Everything veteran is so complicated. Because it's never really a straight answer. It's never a straight answer. It's like you talk to one person and they're like, oh, yeah. And then when it gets down to it, oh, you got to go and see this other person. You're like, okay, I'll go see that other person. you go see the other person, they're like, oh, really? No, I'm not the person. And you're like, wait a minute, I just, what this happening to you? What's going on? Oh, well, let me try to figure it out for you and I'll let you know. And you're like, oh my God, seriously, I'm back in the army. It's like you can't get nowhere. Nobody knows anything. It's like they have a title or whatever, what their job's supposed to be, and you're thinking this is the right person you're supposed to be talking to, and then you go and talk to them. It's like, oh, well, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but the right person to talk to is so and so. And you're like, wait, I just spent like an hour talking to you. You could have told me that in the first 10 minutes. I don't have to waste my time talking to you.
What did you do as a career after the war?
What you mean?
After the service?
After the service, I went to school full time and I worked part time for insurance agency.
Okay. Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
I don't believe I understand what you just said.
All right, let me try it again. Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
It will have to after 9 years,
Right.
and everything that I've done, I don't see how it's not gonna.
Huh?
I don't see how that's not gonna happen.
Okay.
Anybody that's been in the military for more than 2 years, there is no way you can say no. It doesn't influence you thinking about war or your experience. No, it happens, and it's not something you can get away from.
Right. Okay. How did your service and experiences affect your life?
Oh, a lot.
Okay.
Mentally, physically. I mean, every aspect of your life after the military is affected by what you've done in the military. Everything. Your relationships, your mental state, your physical state, because me personally, because of the injuries I got in the military, there are certain things I can't do. I cannot go and get a job that requires me to be on my feet all day, because it hurts my ankle, it hurts my back, it hurts my knee. It's just not something I can do.
Right.
Same thing with my wrist. I have issue with my wrist. I cannot go get a job that's going to require me to be lifting 100 pounds all day, every day, or a lot of typing, because that started being an issue for me as well. So your entire life is changed after the military. Everything that you have to do as far as civilian has to be around what your experience was in the military, what you experienced mentally, physically, as you come out of it.
Okay. Is there anything that you feel like you left out of the interview?
Oh, it's a lot of stuff I left out. It's a lot of stuff I left out. I mean, if you really think about it, we just talked about the military in general, but there is a lot of other things that happen in the military that most people don't talk about. The general aspect of it is, okay, I got up, I went to physical training, I went to my workstation, I did my job, or I did whatever was required of me besides what I was taught as my job was. But there's so many other aspects as far as the military is concerned that you deal with that most people don't talk about.
Such as?
Sexual harassment. That's one. Racism. That's two. Sexism. I mean, I could go on. It's a lot of different things that people don't talk about because a lot of time it's just brushed under the carpet.
Do you feel like you were handled, you or other people of color, or, you know, obviously there's the racial issue and the sexual issue, the gender issue. Do you feel as though because of your race on one hand, you were treated differently than other people?
Of course.
Okay, and how about, obviously, and I guess from what you're telling me, gender-wise, you felt as though you were discriminated
Yes.
against?
Yes.
Uh, Do you feel as though certain ethnic groups were assigned certain jobs?
Yes. I mean, I experienced it. I lived through it. I fought it. I mean, I was right in it. So, I would definitely say yes.
All right, and, well, I mean, do you feel like talking about those two issues, or, you know, one is the ethnicity and the other one is the gender?
Ethnicity wise, I can only speak as far as aviation is concerned, because that was my job. Because everybody's stationed in a group of what your job is. Aviation is concerned, it's a very, very small group. Anybody that's been in aviation will tell you it's a very, very small world. You see the same people wherever you go. You have to deal with the same people wherever you go. You're never really too far away from that group. With that being said, as far as the race issue is, it's mostly white males. Okay, it's a field that's mostly filled by white males. Being in the aviation, the ratio of females, period, in males, is you will get, in my platoon alone, at one point we had 70 soldiers, and out of those 70 soldiers, only like 4 or 5 women, and that's it. Everybody else was males. And then you break it down to black and white. Again, it was more white males than black males in those jobs. So as a woman, not only did I have to deal with the fact that I was black, I also had to deal with the fact that I was a woman, because they have this thing about, as a woman in aviation, you don't know what you're doing, period. You know, it's like, there's this thing, it's like they see you coming, they tend to try to fit you in another job, you know, than what you actually went to school for.
Even though you qualified and you got chosen to go to tech school.
Yeah. I mean, prime example, I went to school to become an NCO, and I was in my class, there was only 2 females.
NCO, what is that? Non-commissioned officer?
Yeah, there was only 2 females in the class, and we all sitting around, and the drill sergeant was asking everybody what they did for their job. And when it came to me, it was myself and the other female. And when it came to me, for me to actually say to him what my job was, he was like, hold up, let me guess. You work in the orderly room, right? You're a pencil pusher. And I was like, okay, well, you're wrong. I'm not a pencil pusher. And I gave him my job title. He was like, what is that? You know, so I explained it to him. He was like, okay. So I guess you're one of the smart ones then. You know, and this is like an instructor with that mentality. Like, just because you're a woman, he already know you're working in the office somewhere, just signing paperwork or typing things. And I was like, I told him, I said, that was not cool at all. That assumption was not cool. I didn't like that. He was, oh, I'm sorry, you get most of the females you get, they're all working in an orderly room or somewhere they're only like pushing papers. And I was like, okay, right. And then it's like you're dealing with the sexism coming from the males, the white males. You're dealing with sexism coming from the black males. But when it comes to the black males, there's a different type of thing going on, because they not only are they sexist against you, at the same time they feel like they should be able to see you on the side. Most of them will be married or whatever, but they're still trying to pursue something just because they have the rank, or I'm gonna end up being the one in charge of you. So how far do you want to get? How easy do you want it to be for you? So it's like you have a choice to either stand your ground and your values or go with the flow. And if you stand your ground, you just know there's a bunch of nonsense that you're going to have to deal with every day. And then it's like in the army, they tell you that, oh, well, they don't tolerate sexual harassment. It's a bunch of nonsense. It's tolerated a lot. You can try to file reports and it goes nowhere, because my first experience with sexual harassment was my first duty station. That was Fort Hood, Texas. And there was this master sergeant. I got there and to my duty station, and he presented himself as being concerned and helpful, and since you don't know anything, you don't know where to go, what to do, or what's going on, he's gonna help you. So of course, young and naive, you don't know, you're thinking, okay, great, somebody's trying to help me out, yeah. And it started with, okay, this is where you go to eat, this is where you go, this is your living quarters, and this, that, and a third. And to this man telling you, oh, as a hobby, I'm a photographer. Oh, really? Okay. You're not thinking anything of that either, still. And then, oh, well, you could be a model, I can take pictures of you, and I'm like, model? I'm in the army. What? What? And then, the studio's at his house, and you can come, and, we can take pictures of your bathing suits, lingerie, and I'm like, what? Oh, lingerie? And I'm like, well, I modeling is not my thing. That's not what I want to do. I don't want to pursue that at all. And then when you're trying to like slowly back away from this person, then he say to you, oh, well, you know what? There's one more thing I should tell you about the army. Look at your rank and look at mine. I'm a master sergeant. I've been in the army long enough for this, for that, and you just getting here. And he was like, if you go and tell anybody about this, nobody's going to believe you. You're just getting here. And you're looking at this man like, what? And he was like, yeah, I'm just letting you know. Between you and me, you can't go and tell anybody. Nobody's going to believe you. It's going to be your words against mine. And as far as the army's concerned, since I've been around longer than you, it's your word against mine. And I'm always going to be right. And I was like, okay, thank you for that lesson. Yeah. I said, well, just stay away from me.
Okay.
And it doesn't stop, no matter where you go. It doesn't stop. I remember I filed a report. Man, I can't even. So I filed so many reports. It's just crazy, and I none of them got nowhere. None of them. I got to Georgia, K Company. That was the name of the company. When I got there, I was greeted by some, if you want to say, African American soldiers, and they said to me, "Welcome to the KKK company." And I was like, "What?" "Oh yeah, this company is called KKK." Are you serious? They're like, "Yeah." I said, "The only difference between slave back in the days and now that you're in this company is the fact that the chains are invisible." And they're like, "But you have shackles on your ankles and your hands. You just don't see them." And I was just shocked. I was like, "Oh my goodness."
Where was this?
Hunter Army Airfield.
Oh.
Hunter Army Airfield. That's in Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just shocked, that particular name was being used commonly, and it was like, okay. It was okay. And the issue I always had issues because I wasn't the quiet one. I wasn't gonna just look the other way and it's okay. I was never that type of person, and that was always the issue I always had wherever I went. If I saw it was wrong, I would say it's wrong, whether they liked it or not. And that always made me the black sheep, the one they trying to get out the way because I'm stirring up the waters or disturbing whatever they've established. Giving the others ideas and stuff. So, yeah, it was not the Army for me was not a walk in the park. It was fighting every day. It was a different fight every day. Every day. If I wasn't fighting racism, I was fighting harassment. If I wasn't fighting that, and then once I became a non-commissioned officer, not only was I fighting for myself, I had to fight for the soldiers that I had that were African American, because they were always looking at me to fix the issue because they were so afraid to say anything. Because once you start speaking up, they know you're going to get stopped in your track. You're not going to get promoted. You're not going to get in your rank. Because for you to get the rank, the people in charge of you have to open that door for you. And nobody want to say anything because of that. They want to advance and get away from it. But to do that, you have to be able to live through it and let it happen. And I was not trying to hear it.
Okay. All right, well, I want to thank you for your time.
You're
I really
welcome.
do. Thank you very, very much. It was very enlightening.